Have you ever been in a relationship like this? You're giving your best, but it feels like you're always coming up short. No matter what you do, no matter how much you try, there's a persistent feeling that you're not enough. This person in your life seems to have a knack for making you question yourself, your efforts, your very existence. It's a perplexing puzzle, especially when it comes from someone you love or cherish. But what if the answer lies in understanding not just love, but also the concept of toxic relationships through the lens of Stoicism? Life has a way of teaching its harshest lessons through the people closest to us. Sometimes the ones we fear losing the most are the very individuals who are silently tearing us apart. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, once said, "Some people come into our lives as destructive forces, as thieves in the night, who steal our peace, our happiness, and our very souls." It's a sobering thought, isn't it? But how can we, as Stoics, protect ourselves from these internal thieves? How do we recognize their presence in our lives? One of the central tenets of Stoicism is the idea that we have the power to choose our thoughts and reactions. Epictetus, the former slave-turned-philosopher, taught us that it's not events that upset us, but our judgments about those events. So the first step is to detach our happiness from external factors, including our relationships with other people. When we do this, we start to see relationships not as the be-all and end-all of our happiness, but as contributors to it. This shift in perspective allows us to evaluate our relationships more objectively, to ask tough questions about the dynamics at play and whether the relationship is truly serving both parties. Consider the following. Are you in a relationship where you constantly feel the need to justify your actions or downplay your achievements? Do you find yourself questioning your own self-worth because of the way the other person treats you? If so, you might be dealing with what we could term an internal thief. These relationships, whether they be friendships, romantic partnerships, or even family ties, are marked by a lack of mutual respect and care. They thrive on one-sidedness, where you consistently give more than you receive, where your needs are overlooked and your feelings invalidated. In such relationships, the other person seems to materialize out of thin air whenever they need something from you, a favor, an ear to listen, or perhaps just a shoulder to lean on. Yet, when it's your turn to lean on them, to ask for support or understanding, they seem to vanish into thin air. They don't show up when you need them the most. Why? Because true friends, as Marcus Aurelius would say, are those who want the best for you, even if it means they won't be by your side. True relationships are about mutual growth, not selfish sustenance. But here's the hard truth we must confront. Most people aren't willing to look within. They're too comfortable pointing fingers at external circumstances, too quick to blame societal pressures or past hurts. As Stoics, we must recognize that everyone is responsible for the state of their own soul. External circumstances may play a role, but ultimately, as Marcus Aurelius famously wrote, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. So what do we do when faced with these internal thieves? The answer, my friends, lies in detachment and honesty. Detachment from the outcome, from the need to change the other person, and honesty in assessing the value of the relationship. If it's a relationship that brings more pain than joy, more deceit than trust, then it's time to let go. As Seneca put it, it's better to be alone than in bad company. It's a hard truth, but a necessary one. Remember, we're not called to tolerate disrespect or settle for less than we deserve. We're called to be discerning, to be honest, and above all, to love ourselves enough to walk away from what no longer serves us. Let us strive to cultivate relationships that are as real as the sun, as honest as the moon, and as constant as the stars. Modern life is filled with masks. Some are so bold, some are so fragile. Some people are like masks. They appear when it's convenient. They disappear when they're no longer needed. You meet someone new, you're excited, and they wear the mask of the perfect friend, the ideal partner. For a while, it feels good. But what happens when that person starts to resent you, to criticize you behind your back, to use your friendship for their own benefit? What do you do when the mask slips and you see the ugly face underneath? You have two choices. 1. Adjust your expectations and endure the friendship, essentially saying, "I know you're not the person I thought you were, but I'm willing to put up with it." Or 2. End the friendship and find someone better. Marcus Aurelius said, "He who has once done you wrong will make light of your pain, even if it is great, and he will do it again if he sees that you endure it." Don't adjust your expectations. End the relationship. It's better to be alone than to be with someone who's using you. Some people are like masks. They're always smiling, always seeming happy, never letting you in. You ask them how they're doing, and they say, "Oh, I'm fine," even though you can tell by their eyes that they're not. You ask them about their life, their dreams, their hopes, and they either laugh it off or change the subject. They never really tell you anything about themselves because they don't want to be vulnerable. They just want to be liked, and you can't have a real friendship with someone like that. You're just a number on their social list. So what do you do in that case? You end the friendship and move on. It's better to be honest about your feelings than to pretend that everything is okay. Some people are like masks. They seem to come apart at the seams with the slightest touch. A small word of criticism or a minor setback, and they crumble. You can't have a deep relationship with someone who is so fragile. You have to walk on eggshells around them all the time, afraid to say or do anything that might upset them. So what do you do in this situation? You end the friendship and look for someone stronger. It is better to be with someone who can handle the truth than to waste your time on someone who can't. There are also people who are like masks. They hide their true faces behind a facade of politeness and niceness. They won't hurt a fly, even if it means that they won't stand up for you when you need it the most. They won't rock the boat or speak their minds. They're too afraid of conflict or confrontation. They would rather let others walk all over them than to assert themselves. Do you really want that kind of person in your life? Someone who's too afraid to live authentically? I think not. So what do? You end the friendship and find someone braver. It's better to have someone who can be honest with you and stand up for you, even if it means that they might get into a fight sometimes. At least you know where you stand with them. You see, some people are like masks. They're fake, they're superficial, they're harmful, they're cowardly. But you know what? That's okay. Just don't be like them. Be real, be strong, be honest, be brave. Don't be afraid to show your true face to the world. Don't be afraid to be yourself. Epicurus said, "We suffer more from the roles we perform than from the hardships we face. It takes more strength to pretend to be someone you're not than to be who you are." When you pretend, you're betraying yourself. You're selling out your soul for a bowl of porridge. You're sacrificing your integrity at the altar of social convention. You're compromising your values for the sake of popularity. And that, my friends, is the ultimate weakness. If someone doesn't love you, if someone doesn't respect you, if someone doesn't appreciate you, then let them go. You don't need their approval. You don't need their validation. You don't need their acceptance. You don't need them at all. You need yourself. You need your own self-respect. You need your own self-worth. You need your own self-love. You are enough. You are more than enough. You are perfect just the way you are. Don't ever forget that. One of life's greatest pains comes from people who imitate closeness, but never practice it. They copy your words, your style, even your struggles, but not your sincerity. They want the benefits of your presence without the burden of loyalty. These are shadows, not companions, and like shadows, they vanish when the light shifts. A Stoic trusts deeds over declarations, patterns over moments. Who calls when the storm comes? Who stands when the crowd departs? That is the measure of bond, not the performance in times of ease. There's another thing that spreads faster than gossip: envy. Envy poisons the well of accomplishment. It whispers doubts, it sows discontent, and it feasts upon the misfortunes of others. The envious person is trapped in a cage of their own making. They see the success of others, and instead of being inspired, they're infected with a desire to diminish it. They are less interested in the possibility of their own excellence than in the destruction of someone else's. To the envious person, the achievements of others are not a source of motivation, but an obstacle to their own perceived advantage. They do and want other people to succeed because that success serves as a painful reminder of their own inaction, or worse, their failures. It's easier to tear down someone else's tower than to build your own. Envy is the corrosion that undermines the soul. It's the weed that chokes the flower of achievement. A Stoic doesn't just rise above envy, they actively defy it. They understand that jealousy is a testament to the inadequacy of one's own life, not a reflection of another's. The truly accomplished person is too busy with their own journey to be threatened by the progress of others. Seneca said it beautifully, "He who is not contented with what he has won't be contented with what he will have." But there is another vice that can be even more corrosive than envy, and that is betrayal. Betrayal is a violation of trust, a breach of confidence, an attack on the very fabric of relationships. It's the moment when the guard is lowered and the dagger is drawn. The wounds of betrayal cut deep because they come from those we least expected, from those we gave our trust, from those we considered friends. Betrayal shakes our sense of security. It makes us question our judgment, our intuition, our very sense of self. And yet, as the Stoics remind us, betrayal is often a reflection of the betrayer, not the betrayed. Marcus Aurelius writes in Meditations, "He who is unable to be your friend is an enemy to himself," in the words of Publilius Syrus. He who comes to you as a friend is an enemy to both himself and you. When someone betrays us, it's because there was already something broken within them. Betrayal is not a testament to our own failings, but a commentary on the failings of others, their smallness, their insecurity, their selfishness. So how should a Stoic respond to betrayal? With forgiveness, not because the one who has wronged us deserves it, but because we ourselves deserve the peace that comes from letting go of anger and resentment. We must recognize that everyone is fighting their own battles, and those battles can sometimes lead them to betray us. But that doesn't justify their actions. It simply helps us to respond to their betrayal with magnanimity rather than vindictiveness. We've seen this in action, haven't we? People who seem loyal and trustworthy suddenly turn. They stab us in the back, revealing their true colors. They demonstrate that their so-called loyalty was nothing more than flattery and conformity. It was their way of climbing the social ladder, of gaining favor and power. They pretended to be our friends, but in reality, they were just waiting for an opportunity to advance themselves, even if it meant sacrificing our friendship. These are the people who live in the shadows, who mimic the qualities we admire, who feign loyalty and understanding. But when the chips are down, when the music stops and the lights come on, they show their true colors. They become strangers in masks, exposing the hollowness of their existence. So how can we protect ourselves from these imitators and false friends? How can we ensure that our circle is filled with genuine companions who stay by our side through thick and thin? The answer, my friends, lies in being true to ourselves, in living a life of integrity and authenticity. Let your actions speak louder than words. Let your loyalty be a beacon in the darkness. Let your honesty be a shield against deceit. And above all, let your love be unconditional, not because we expect others to reciprocate immediately, but because that's the kind of people we want to be. We can all recall times when we defended someone's bad behavior. Perhaps it was a close friend or a family member whose flaws we tried to excuse. We tell ourselves, they're just tired. They just had a bad day. It's just their way. They'll change with time, but these are fragile excuses. They're like those makeshift bridges that collapse the moment truth walks across them. Welcome to the channel. In this episode, we'll be discussing how to deal with people who are always making excuses and getting away with it. You can also read along with the chapter from the book A Guide to the Good Life by William Irvine. Chapter 4. People like that. In today's fast-paced world, it's easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of life and overlook the significance of the little things. But according to William Irvine, an expert in ancient philosophy, there's wisdom in the simplicity of a well-lived life. He encourages us to slow down, reflect, and find contentment in the everyday moments. In his book A Guide to the Good Life, Irvine masterfully weaves ancient philosophies with modern psychology, showing us how the principles of Stoicism and Epicureanism can transform our approach to happiness and well-being. But it's not just about adopting ancient philosophies. Irvine challenges us to question our modern conventions and beliefs. For instance, he tackles the concept of multitasking, which is often seen as a virtue in our society. Through a thought-provoking analysis, he helps us understand why this constant switching between tasks is not only less efficient, but also detrimental to our mental health and overall quality of life. He delves into the science of distraction and how it affects our concentration and ability to savor the present moment. Irvine's insights are not confined to theory. He provides practical advice on how to cultivate better habits, improve focus, and enhance our daily lives. Moreover, the book offers a refreshing critique of the wellness industry and its tendency to overcomplicate things. In Wayne's words, "If it feels good, do it," he encourages us to cut through the noise and focus on what truly matters. One of the most thought-provoking ideas Irvine presents is the distinction between active and passive happiness. He highlights how passive happiness, often associated with pleasure-seeking, can actually lead to a decrease in well-being. On the other hand, active happiness, which involves embracing challenges and living a life of meaning, is the key to a more fulfilling existence. Through stories of historical figures and scientific studies, Irvine paints a compelling picture of what it means to live a good life. A Guide to the Good Life is more than just a self-help book. It is a philosophical guide that challenges conventional wisdom and encourages us to create our own definitions of a good life. Whether you're a fan of ancient philosophy or simply someone looking for guidance on how to live a better life, this book is a must-read. Judge people not by their potential, but by their practice. Who they are repeatedly is who they truly are. To live otherwise is to gamble our peace on illusions. It's better the silence of solitude than the noise of betrayal. It is better to walk alone with integrity than to be surrounded by those who secretly hope for your fall. We all confront individuals whose conduct contradicts their words, whose actions belie their promises, and whose apologies fail to quell our intuition that they are not sincere. When faced with such deceit, the Stoics offer a straightforward solution. Limit your interactions with those whose character does not align with their words. If their behavior doesn't match their promises, if their apologies lack sincerity, and if their actions betray your trust, it's best to minimize your contact with them. Better to walk alone with integrity than to be surrounded by those who secretly hope for your fall. Better to be alone with the certainty of solitude than to be with people whose loyalty is questionable. Some might argue that this Stoic perspective is akin to social withdrawal. However, the Stoics would counter that one should never fear being alone more than being betrayed. As long as you have your own mind, you are never alone. The Stoics believe that the silence of solitude is preferable to the deceptive chatter of insincere company. A person without honesty is like a coin without value, and it's better to be solitary than to have such a person corrupt your own integrity. When dealing with deceitful people, it's crucial to recognize that we cannot alter their nature. We can't force honesty upon someone who chooses to be deceitful. Rather than wasting our energy trying to change them, the Stoics advise us to focus on what is within our control, our own response. Don't let the misconduct of others undermine your own integrity. Strength over slander. When someone tries to harm your reputation, consider this: their slander is a reflection of their own weakness, not your strength. Just as a shield protects a warrior from the opponent's attacks, your strong character can deflect gossip and slander. It's not about being impervious to criticism. Even the Stoics acknowledge that people can and will say bad things about you. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, famously wrote, "They can say whatever they want. If it's true, it doesn't concern me. If it's false, it's just a reflection of their own ignorance." By focusing on living a virtuous life, you build a strong foundation that is resilient against external attacks. Your actions, integrity, and resilience speak louder than any slander. So stand tall, stay true to yourself, and let your character be your shield and strength against the winds of gossip. You can't be broken by other people. You can't be destroyed by other people. You can't even be hurt by other people. Only you can do those things to yourself, but it's easy to forget that. It's easy to look at somebody else and think that they are responsible for our pain. And so today, just a reminder, nobody can destroy you except your own illusions. Not the gossipers, not the absent friends, not the enemies, not the imitators. It is only your attachment to them, your refusal to see clearly, that gives them power. You know, the Stoics talk about how the chief task in life is to distinguish between what is in our control and what is not. Well, this is part of that. This is part of recognizing that the only person that can actually harm you is you. Because people can say things about us, they can do things to us. But in the end, it's our interpretation of those things that determines whether or not they have power. Marcus Aurelius says, "Look at the person who thinks he can be harmed, who looks like he's carrying a burden. What does that look like? A slave," he says. "He doesn't realize that it is his own thoughts that are harming him, that it is his own thoughts that are keeping him from being free." You willingly remain a slave to whatever you think you can't live without, so you have to recognize who is really holding the chains. It's easy, isn't it, to look at somebody else and say that they did something wrong, that they caused me pain, that they broke my heart. But what did they do? They didn't break your heart. They said or did something that you took to mean that they broke your heart. Why did you take it that way? Why was that interpretation irresistible to you? Because it's true. You had an idea of who that person was, and their action disproved it. You thought they were loyal, and now you see they're not. You thought they were generous, and now you find out they're not. You thought they were loving, and now you see that they're not. And so their behavior coincided with your expectations, and you're crushed. But here's the other side of that coin. When we cling too tightly to what we think we know, we become blind to everything else. We miss out on the opportunity to learn something new about the person, to understand them better, to give them more credit, to see them more clearly. Seneca says that we should be willing to change our opinions about people. He says, "There's no disgrace in saying a person has changed for the better, though that is rare, or changed for the worse." If that happens, don't blame yourself for not seeing it sooner. There's a beautiful story about a painter. One day he puts down his paintbrush and he says, "I've learned everything I need to learn. I will never pick up a paintbrush again." And his assistant says, "What about me? What am I supposed to do?" And the old painter says, "Well, you keep painting, my boy, and every time you do, add a little more white to the paint. Your job is to make sure that the whites get whiter and whiter and whiter." So the young painter does that. He adds a little bit of extra white to every color, and the paintings start to get lighter and lighter and lighter. And after 10 years, the old painter comes back into the studio and he looks at these pristine white paintings and he says, "Ah, so this is why you shouldn't stop learning. Because if you think you've learned all there is to know, then your edge will get dull and you'll miss opportunities to get better." And so it is with people. If we think we know someone completely, then we miss the chance to know them better. We miss the chance to see them more clearly. We hold on to our initial impressions of them instead of giving them the benefit of the doubt, instead of updating our opinion of them, instead of recognizing that people can change, that people can improve, that we can learn to love them even more than we did before. So who broke your heart? Who did something to hurt you? Who was the cause of your pain? Nobody did, except you. You refused to let go of the person that you thought they were. You refused to let go of the past. You refused to see clearly. And so you cling to what is no longer there, and you suffer. What is the solution? Let it go. Hold only what strengthens you. Walk with a calm mind whoever walks beside you. This is the path of the Stoic.